All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the bracket that we are left with. Fearless is in full force, and we have enough data now to begin making some assessments, of course, about what is coming up in this week of course, LEC. Let's take a look at the matchups that we have today. We have BDS versus Vitality and Team Heretics versus GX. GX, a big problem for them ever since week 2 is that I think Jackie's is underperforming, and additionally, the meta read of course, GX is quite poor. So as you can see here in this draft here, they had the Mel bot lane together with the Galio bot for no reason at all. It was a very, very strange draft. They are kind of all over the place ever since we saw that Nidalee Smolder game. It seems like that patch change to 25S12. I hate these names, bro. 15.2. Ever since that change, it seems like they were kind of shook. So GX, ever since they got touched by, of course, the Sackdown curse, they haven't really recovered. And I think that meta-wise, they are kind of all over the place. They did have a tough first round now, considering like we know now G2's form, which is something that is relevant. But, you know, the main thing for me when it comes to this team, it's like I don't expect them to play super well together because I don't think that their early game is super consistent, but I expect them to individually perform. Jun and Jackie's are the standout players for me when it comes to like carrying games, and I think as long as they bring themselves to fight against Team Heretics, I do think that they should always be able to win. If GX want to do more and potentially compete more and have a good series against Koi, they need to really sharpen their draft approach because currently it's not that good, you know, just not good at all. Team Heretics, in my opinion, hasn't changed at all about them. I do think that this is a team that is aware of how bad they are, which sounds horrible, but that's actually a strength. I think in a world where this is a team that is on the weaker end, they have some pocket picks, you know, like the Draven for Flacket, you know, Shio on Talia. I do think that Team Heretics have played to their weakness, which means that they took wins against teams that are not aware of their weakness, with committing to full scaling and so forth. But I think that GX kind of functions in the same way when they want to take wins. So I do think that GX should just win this 2-0. The opportunities for Team Heretics lie in like having good scaling drafts, and GX kind of, you know, having drafts that are too focused on the early game and require too much precision. Those are the opportunities for Team Heretics to cause like some upset wins, but GX should be, of course, favored, and I would be surprised if they don't end this 2-0. If they don't, you know, the main angle, right, is that they seem kind of broken ever since week 2 and 3, because they were one of the few teams that started 3-0. We shall see how that kind of pans out for them. I'm curious how that pans out. BDS versus Vitality, the more interesting matchup, if anything, about today, BDS versus Vitality. I do think that both teams have clear issues ending games. I think BDS, the main thing, I think if they have good scaling drafts and they're playing like mages mid, where Nuke can perform, I do think that I expect BDS to be a little bit more solid in how they end games. But I do think that Vitality have better individual players across the board. It's just that their macro kind of lacks as the game progresses. I wonder if this is something Vitality could tighten up, but it's just so hard to believe in because in the end, looking at everything, this is an issue for Vitality this year and also last year. Kazi, Hilly, Chayek, Linkas, and Naknako, very respectable players. I think Naknako has performed much better than Irrelevant this split. I think Irrelevant has been literally irrelevant. I think 113 has been super solid. We're looking at BDS as well. It's like looking at their matchups. They also seem to have tested things outside the norm. If you take a look at things. Here they played an Mbessa, Viego, Aurora, Koki draft. Instead of picking Ashe here, or setting up for, Varos cases, they ended up in a situation where they pick Koki when they need more utility in this draft. Picking Ambessa, Viego, Aurora, this is for NIP to do, not for BDS to do. I think their best form is when the Relevant is just playing some tank that scales well, and then mage mid, and then something carry-esque for 113, because I think 113 has been performing good. I think 113 and also Ice have been the standout players, and I think Nuke has been solid when he does play the mages. You look at this history here, he has, of course, the Arzi, the Oriana, the Hui. Koki kind of lands in the same frame. Victor, Then he had like one Jace game, but then it kind of went in a different direction, right? It was like Nuke playing fucking Ambessa mid, super strange to me, doesn't fit him at all. And then, of course, they had like the Aurora, full engage Aurora. And then finally the Tristana game where, in my opinion, Nuke like solo lost that game. I think if BDS can stick to the identity that works for them, I do think that they should be able to win against Vitality. But the recent history really shows that they try to branch out. So I'm worried that it's just not good enough. Because I think if Vitality manage to, have like if they're playing against a BDS that is drafting kind of all over the place and not focused, I do think Vitality just have better individual players right now. I think the individual players are just better. So I think there is a chance that BDS lose. I don't think this is a matchup that is like 100%. I think this is like follow the draft. If you see Nuke on champions like, for example, Jace, Tristana, Ambessa, like the AD mids to set up like AP carries for 1-1-3, I think stay clear. Because then I think Vitality looks better. And Vitality, if they have drafts that are like easy to execute as the game progresses, I do think that their laners are super, super good. And Hilly is looking better and better, and Kazi too. It was just disappointing, Vitality against KC specifically, that game 2 where they were competitive, that they really, really threw that. And that was just a story in Vitality versus KC. But BDS is not as punishing in their macro. So if I have to go with my gut, gun to my head, Vitality, I lean slightly Vitality. All right. The next matchup, that we should talk about is G2 versus KC, the big one. Let's tell the tale of how G2 got here. So G2 in week 3, they definitely like adjusted their draft, right? They really, really figured out how they want to draft. A big shift for them was that they put a heavier emphasis on making sure that they have ranged mid laners. So look at that beautiful, beautiful win streak they have, 8 games in a row. If you take a look at some of their drafts earlier on, as you can see here, Melee, the worst games of Caps were, of course, his Silas games. The Kali game looked good, but of course, in the end, KC managed to win that. They were playing very, very heavy melee compositions, and then they started to compensate by playing, of course, tank stop, and that's something that started their kind of win streak. And then in the end, I feel like the jungle support synergy has slowly gotten better in terms of how they control the map, and now BB can pull out, of course, his counter picks. So, with that being said, I do think they have found themselves in the draft, because I do think that was like a major issue for G2. Because I was always claiming Skewmond is playing really good. Really, really good. I think Labrov is kind of timid, but it seems like it's almost as if he has accepted that he can get away with doing less. And then as he's doing less, he is actually, just, coasting. He's taking it easy. And I think that's a positive look, I think that's all right. With that being said, Hans Sama, I think he was the biggest standout in these best of threes. His Kalista is a classic. His Sivir is very, very refreshing. And then additionally, he had one of the best Ezreal performances we've seen ever. A big criticism towards Hans Sama from my mind is that I felt like he was just Gumayushi 2.0, MF, Kalista, Draven, Varus. And the thing is, Labrov is not a player that can leverage that prio to carry games the same way Mickey does. Labrov is a strong laner, and I think that simplifying the game for him by putting more emphasis on the capacity of Hans Sama carrying has been a really, really good thing. So as you can see here, it's like Hans Sama morphed into Smash. He started playing a lot of Ezreal, and then he had the Sivir and the Ezreal. Sivir also in Gumayushi Classic, but you get that they kind of reshaped themselves to put more carry emphasis on the AD carry role. So I think that's really, really cool. Very, very clear that they found themselves in draft and restructured things, and they are playing more to Labrov's strengths. When Labrov was the most successful, right? If you could remember, like his combos together with Ice and Crowny, lane focused and making sure that AD can scale, I think that's a good look for Labrov. So in my mind, in terms of how they reshape things, tanks and counter picks on top, super, super nice. The Pantheon looks lovely for Skewmon too. And you have your their Caps, of course, playing, playmakers with range, super, super lovely. Ahri, Aurora, Azir. He can steal waves on side, farm on side, perma, take it easy, doesn't need help from support, doesn't need help from jungle because Kumon likes to farm and Labrov doesn't like to move on the map too much. I think they've found like a very, very nice and neat solution to everything. But also a central point behind the drafts too in an LEC that is a little bit less precise, and also when G2 is less precise, I feel like their drafts allow them to come back into games. Their drafts allow them to make a couple of mistakes, which is really, really good. And a very big thing, they're no longer throwing at Atakan, like for example Fnatic do. Okay. Next in line, we have, of course, KC. I think KC, by my surprise, KC is the most disciplined team in the league. They're the most disciplined, which is insanely impressive, by the way. Insanely impressive. I like their win against Koi, especially that first game. They didn't give Koi any openings to do much. I feel like they were leveraging information super well to gain more information. And they waited for their timers to make the enemy reveal. And there were no angles for Koi's draft there when they played the VIA game and so forth to actually engage onto KC. So this was a really, really good look. Additionally, a big question mark for me was Targamas. Targamas had the best series of the split so far, best couple of games with the Poppy, the Renata. That was super, super nice. Targamas was a bit of a question mark to me when it comes to the potential ceiling of this team. As you all know, I rated Fnatic as the number 1, G2 number 2, and KC number 3. But now with this new version of Targamas, I think that you can dream. You are allowed to definitely like dream, which I think is super, super cool. I think that individually this team is fantastic. I think Vladi is really, really sharp. Like I think that as the game progresses, he gets better and better, and his lane phase is not even a weakness. I think that KC have good draft read, even though their game 2 draft was a little bit greedy, in my opinion, against Koi. The main question for me, for KC, right, I do think that playing a BO5 against G2 would be challenging because G2 have a lot of depth in what they play. I think that BB and Caps are so dangerous, and at the same time, a unique part about this draft is that usually Hansama pulls a lot of bans. But the thing is, Kalist plays those same champions. Kalist plays those same champions. He plays the Kalista, he plays the Draven. So it creates a very unique dynamic where champions might be left open and G2 might have to play out scenarios where their OP champions that everybody bans against them will be open. If you can take a look at here, Game of Legends, you pull up of course, G2 Esports. You scroll down, season 15, boom. Banned against Draven, Kalista. This is something that KC can experiment with because these are, of course, contested picks, which is super, super cool. Usually teams play against G2 with very few bans, and this is going to, open up a different layer to the game. Maybe it's as simple as maybe they ban Draven, and then it forces a Kalista ban, or maybe on red side, suddenly KC is a team that has a lot of bans. I think that's super cool. In terms of champion pool, these bot lanes are very, very competitive with one another, and there's a lot of things shared. So I think that's amazing. I think Kana as a player, I see him as a player that plays, he's the master of few. And when he gets those champions, he looks fantastic. The Jace, the Ambassador, the Gnar, the Rumble even stands out. As everything progresses and bans go his way, where is Kana going to go? I think over time, BB is a player that is going to provide you more value in a BO5. So I do think that's an edge draft-wise as things progress. Because BB in the end, if you look at the champions that he has played, it's a very, very long list. He had the Swain into K'Sante counter. He had, of course, the Warwick into Ambessa counter. He has the Cho'Gath that game through, he has the capacity to find counters and to, at the same time, they can target ban if the pool becomes more tight. And this is going to be, strength for G2 in my mind. Obviously, KC hasn't been tested, so maybe Kana is hiding in the position some champions that he wants to play. Same thing for Caps, right? Caps, of course, is very, very devious as drafts progress. I think Vladi, the fact that he has the Yone in the back pocket, even though he has one loss. He can play, of course, Vladi. I do think the Yone is something that I don't want Caps to play. So this is something that they have as a slight advantage. I do think that Vladi has a good range as well, but Caps definitely a player that can go deeper if a series goes deeper. I think if KC is going to win this BO5, they're going to have to do it fast. Like if KC start off good, they slam 3-0, that's cool. But I think if it gets to game 4, game 5, I do think it gets really, really spicy, really, really fast. So that's something to pay attention to. My instinct leans slightly towards G2. I am big on experience, and I do think that it's going to matter a lot in a BO5. These teams have scrimmed each other a lot and they know their patterns a lot, so we're going to see some exciting things in draft. These are the type of best of fives that is going to really spark a big conversation. If we just take a look about the narratives in itself, you have the rookies of the split competing against one another. Kalist versus Scumond. You have Yike versus his former team. You have Kalist, who was rumored, there was this whole thing that Romain addressed, but still funny to talk about how they wanted to trade Kalist for Hans Sama, and this wasn't something that was talked about or went through, which is fantastic. The main issue facing against G2, especially in a BO5 scenario, which is showed against Fnatic, is this is a team you need to beat multiple times in the same game to win. And I feel like G2 have found a way to draft to give them more chances, because those initial weeks were very, very all in and they couldn't come back and they lost a lot of games on Atakan. But these two teams are smart around Atakan, and I hope that nobody is going to fail the IQ test that is, of course, Atakan. But in this moment, I have to favor G2. There is a certain sloppiness to how they play in terms of how they fight and how they engage. And Casey's discipline can shine through that and maybe punish. So that's also something to look out for. But I think this is like 55-45 G2 in this moment in time. And then we'll see where everything goes. You're going to ask me, what do you think if Koi and Fnatic play against the teams that I predicted? Koi and Fnatic, unless something drastic happens in these series, I do expect them to be favorites in their matchups. So I am hoping and predicting that we're going to have a top 4 with G2, KC, Koi, and Fnatic. I think the only potential upset could be GX into Koi, but I think Fnatic should be able to beat whoever comes, unless Fnatic does a Fnatic and disappoints us. Even though I still believe Fnatic have the capacity to maybe win the split. Because it's interesting how a bracket plays out, right? Is that sometimes maybe the team that wins here, right? Maybe the team that has the path of most resistance to get to where they are will learn the most about themselves, the things that work, the things that don't work, and they're not going to make the mistakes that maybe a team that is a little bit colder is going to do. A good example is, of course, Genji at the World Championship. 2 times when they were 3-0, came out as 2 teams directly into quarterfinals because they 3-0'd. They had very rough starts. One time, they lost against Bilibili 3-2, if you guys remember. This was 2023, and then 2024, they were taken to 5 games against FlyQuest and looked very, very weak. Even in this playoffs, Genji started off very rough because, of course, they got auto-seeded, and things like these always matter. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for the LEC. We're going to start a live view and rock and roll. Let's see how this weekend pans out. We are soon coming to an end here with, of course, the LEC winter split, and there's a lot to digest, and I feel like LEC is at an all-time high in terms of the hype. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think, what you predict as the game, and I'll answer, and maybe I break down your reasons and respond to your reasons. Let's have a bit of a discussion. Thank you for watching.